A man was so sure that everyone was aware of the assassin trade. Many can argue that it's something that only exists in fiction. However, it is beyond consideration. There is no means of eliminating a target that's as quick and effective as assassination. That's more than enough of a reason for him and the assassin brotherhood where he belongs to exist. He was considered as the greatest assassin of the current era, even though he caused the president of a particular country to die an accidental death. He was planning on retiring in the end after concluding that job. He can understand them wanting to dispose of a toll that has become obsolete in order to silence them. Nonetheless, he was an exceptional tool to begin with, so he was sure that disposing of him wasn't easy. It seems he was using that time as the perpetrator of that bombing of the president. They are sending children they discovered talent into the world to mold them into capable assassins like him. That must have been what they believed, but they underestimated that he may be able to successfully escape on his own regardless of what happened to the other passenger. Then they made a perfect arrangement and hired another plane with AIM-92 air-to-air missiles. Those would blow a passenger plane like that into total nothingness. He didn't even get a single sliver of faith from them because he was loyal. Without bearing any emotions towards being a tool for the Brotherhood, he lives that far being a superior tool. He has only ever faithfully carried out their orders, and that was solely for that to be trampled upon easily. That day was the first day he ever doubted his own life. If an afterlife exists then, that he will love for his own sake and not for someone's tool. Then the airplane crashed. Later on, a woman noticed that he was already awake, so she went back to the pedestal and walked towards him again. He was in an unfamiliar place and was met by a woman. He remembers that he was in a plane, and there's no chance that he was saved. He was confused if he was in a dream. He was surprised when the woman told him that it was all real, and he was dead because the woman can read his thoughts, or is it just her perception? He observes that the woman's hair, skin, eyes, clothes, and practically everything is pure white. She's more beautiful than anyone he has ever seen. But it's unlikely that she's a human. The woman told him that she was a goddess and summoned his dead spirit. The woman told him that human spirits are promptly bleached and sent out for recycling, but she was going to give him a special alternative. The first is just to recycle. His spirit gets bleached and becomes random. The second is to accept her request and be reincarnated into another world with his personal knowledge and experience. Then the goddess asked him what he wants. He thought that reincarnation would mean that his life would continue. In that case, in order to live a life without regret, he asks the goddess to refine himself to assassinate the strongest, being him as a hero. Superpowers called magic do exist. Physical abilities that are extraordinary enough to allow users to sever the winds or dance the skies. There are monsters that surpass human intellect and squirm through the darkness. That place is a parallel universe that deviated from the conventions he knew of, in which swords and magic were the convention instead. And there's a chosen being sent by gods who excels above even those. He asked the goddess why he would assassinate him. According to the goddess, the hero is so to speak a great person who saves the world. It'll happen 16 years from that moment. The hero will destroy the evil demon king who is painting the world with darkness. However, the hero will use that power for his own self-interest, and the world will once again relapse into a maelstrom. More mercilessly and decisively than the demon king. And then 2 years from that, the world will collapse because of the hero. That would be worrisome. The goddess asked him to assassinate the hero like he was chewing on a crunchy snack. He made it clear to the goddess that if the hero defeats the demon kings as well, he'll be unnecessary. In that case, after he dealt with the hero, he wondered who will become unnecessary then. The goddess responded that if the hero didn't particularly cause any mischief, she would just leave him be, but the acts the hero will commit are well being acceptable limits, so they're getting rid of him because he'll definitely be a pain in their ass if they leave him be. She also added that the hero is special. He's no different from an ordinary human like him. She doesn't care how someone like him does it. For ordinary human beings, the only ones capable of defeating the hero under those limitations are not warriors or mages, but assassins, and that's why he was chosen. He thought that the people of that world have limitations for their own abilities. Even if one spent a life, no matter how much one devoted himself to improve, there's a limit that can't be surpassed. The hero is a unique existence who has greatly surpassed the limitations of those created by that goddess. Only one is allowed to exist in that world. If the hero manifests his owner, he will be unstoppable and nobody will match him in combat. That's why he needs to be assassinated. He said that with a target of that caliber, she's going to need to thoroughly factor in his limitations as a human being. The goddess surprised him that she was going to give his body the greatest specifications human beings possess. She's going to let him freely choose the skills he wants, and it's all free. But he was still thinking since being allowed to freely choose is significant. People are granted special skills when they are born which were originally granted at random. At any rate, that doesn't mean he was only allowed to pick strong skills. If he combines it to his liking, she should have able to create great synergy. The goddess told him to pick his skills, and she will reincarcerate him. Before he answers, he asks the goddess if he could ask her some questions. The woman agreed, so he asked why she could interfere with the world as she pleased because she was a goddess. The goddess told him that it's a coincidence. It's just that there coincidentally weren't enough souls. They're being replenished with souls from other worlds. Coincidentally, the souls that fail to get bleached retain their memories and knowledge, so they coincidentally get born as powerful human beings. But there's no way coincidence lie those could do something to the hero. He laughed because it means the goddess was trying to stay within the rule to the very end. The next question is regarding the 18 years later, if he could take action as soon as he finished preparing. The goddess disagrees because the demon king can't be defeated until the hero appears, so it'll have to be after. The next question is how many souls like him have taken the bait. He thought that it's just hard to think that he was alone in that world. It's natural that the goddess will have prepared many pawns. The goddess suddenly smiles because he notices something interesting. She responds that there's no way she could create coincidence like that frequently, so it's just him as of the moment. The man furrowed his brow because he found her answer something deceitful. Then his last question is that everything is for the sake of killing the hero, or is it for the sake of saving the world? If it's the latter, if it's possible to save the world without killing the hero and just save it. He understood everything, so he accepted the request. He will be reincarnated into that world of swords and magic. He requests to be reincarnated into an affluent family since he needs to train his skills and body. The goddess told him not to worry because she already planned it out for him perfectly. Because she was going to reincarnate him into the lineage of the world's best assassin. The assassin aristocrat named Talhard. He will be the son of the next head family, the heir. So she asks him to hurry on picking his skills as she will reincarnate him after he chooses. He thought that it looked like he was still going to be assassinated even after being reborn. Moreover, that is going to be an assassination way harder than any prey he had when he was still alive. But he has no intentions of just leaving his new life like that. That time, he was surely going to live with his own intentions, and he was going to attend it. In that which he has been unable to attain up to that moment. According to the goddess, in the world he's being reincarnated to, people are granted blessings called skills when they are born. There are 123,851 skills people can master with their bodies. There are 5 ranks called S, A, B, C, and D, and it's possible to master from each of them one by one. Almost every person only has a single S rank, so he's been incredibly thankful for that privilege that was granted to him by the goddess. Theoretically, he could get his hands on every skill, but reaching the S rank is 1 in 100 million possibilities, a level only a single person in all of the Far East could achieve. Fundamentally, when crossing skills, he would choose the strongest S rank and then use it as a base while enhancing it with other skills such as possible. That's because S rank skills are tremendous powers that could turn him into a hero just simply having one. The man asked for an example, so the goddess told him about the Summon Demonic Blade, where he can summon and wield the demonic blade that corresponds to its user's strength. It possesses unspeakable capabilities, even cutting down a mountain with a single swing. The carved seal of servility, where by touching a person's forehead and marking them, he could gain complete control over them and can make as many obedient pawns as he wants. But when carving that seal, since the discerning resistance exists within magic, and the practitioner must possess magical power superior to that of their targets. He can also have the Conjure Demon, where he can use any kind of material to conjure and control otherworldly creatures called demons. He can combine primarily corpses and magical stones to create the demon army that he desires. It's a highly promising skill. Then the Holy Fighting Clad, where in a clad holy garden, his attacks, defense, and speed are drastically raised, and the difference is overwhelming. By simply having that skill, even an infant could destroy a tank using their bare hands. Its versatility is extremely high, so if he was unsure, he can simply choose that one. He told the goddess not only to choose the skills, what he must put the most consideration into is securing firepower. At any rate, even if the hero was defenseless and completely contrary to expectation, half-hearted attacks won't work on him, and they wouldn't even leave a scratch. At the very least, he needs enough firepower to kill him when he attacks his vitality, as he is defenseless. Furthermore, there is also versatility and practicality to consider. He needs to be able to return within unexpected circumstances. He was about to say the skills that he chose when the goddess asked him if what he chose was lukewarm, because she predicted that he was about to choose the S-rank skills of hyper-regeneration. It'll raise the regeneration of everything such as stamina, magical power, passive healing, and so on. It'll be 100 times stronger than what he started with. And depending on his skills, the amount regenerated will rise as well. In addition, he'll become resistant to injury and disease, and the amount of sleep he needs is reduced to a minimum as well. The goddess smiled at him and asked if he was a studious person, because he also chose the rank skill with a chant weaving. The sorcery of that world is merely a secret technique that allows him to use around almost 100 incantations that were created by gods. However, as long as he has that skill, he will be able to craft sorceries brand new to the world. By leveraging his knowledge from his previous life, it should be a skill that allows him to achieve an endless number of possibilities. He also added that if he chose hyper-regeneration, his B-rank skill would automatically be chosen for him as well. If he builds up training with the inexhaustible stamina he get from that skill should grant him powers that exceed his limit. Then he also chose unarmed combat for his C rank, but for D rank, he was still undecided. The goddess almost forgot that it existed and found that humans are truly fascinating. The man told her that she sounded reluctant. The goddess replied that she was just praising him because she was sure that even if he picked up powerful skills that anyone could think of, he'd never be a match for monsters packed with tons of strong skills like the hero, and that's not an exaggeration. She was just looking forward to seeing how he would handle it. The man says that he certainly doesn't stand a chance in the battle, but if it's assassination, then a simple training and careful preparation would do. Later on, it's time for his reincarnation. The goddess was looking forward for his judgment bearing the tastiest fruits. She also reminds him that just because his personality will stay the same doesn't mean he can use that tone of the voice right off the bat when he's a kid. His mother will feel uncomfortable, so he should fix it. His mother was a beauty too, so she reminded him not to make some disgusting face when he's sucking her mountain for milk. Then a light emerged on his body. In an instant, she became a baby. He assumes that the lady whose teary eyes after seeing him must be his mother. She was calling for her husband's name Sion to come and look to him. He felt strange being in an infant's body since he can't do anything but to go with the flow. He assumes that his name was Lug when a man approaches his mother to look for him. Everything still looks foggy, but judging from his parents' garments and the furnishings in that Afghani room of his, it appears he has been safely born into an affluent family. The goddess accompanied him into that world, so when she heard him talking, she asked him to adjust his tone since he was Lug as of the moment. Her service is just a one-day benefit for him. He needs to remember her words carefully. Anyway, when he heard that he was going to be born to a so-called assassin aristocrat, he didn't expect parental love. However, his mother calls his husband and asks if he was going to be like Tohard as well because their country needs someone like him. He made a promise to his wife named Esri that he won't repeat the same mistake and won't let Lug die. Then they both hug Lug. Furthermore, Lug had the feeling he would be able to achieve something as long as he was there. That's something he was sure he never felt even once in his life. Then his mother let him sleep. 5 years have passed since he was reincarnated. He spent 2 years mastering all of the languages and characters used in that world, falling behind quite a bit. Although he feared that growing up quickly might bring suspicion, since those around him were arbitrarily praising him as some prodigy. In the end, he was able to endeavor in his studies without holding back. One day, he read about Tuatha Dé is much more darker than he thought. It's a barren family in the kingdom of Alvarn, one of the 4 great nations. Their territory isn't vast, but they are an affluent family. Aside from tax revenue, they have a lot of other income as well. The reason for that has to do with the 2 faces of Tuatha Dé. They are also the most distinguished family in the kingdom. They receive direct requests from the royal family and other great nobles, earning them enormous rewards and favors that promise to raise them to the upper class. Now for the other faces, they are like life and death. By controlling both sides, they possess a strong political voice and a massive fortune as a baron family. Then he stopped reading books and went outside. He bumped into a servant telling him that a master was calling him, but he didn't respond to her and continued his way out. He went to his father and asked if he found a magic teacher for him. His father let out a sigh because finding a teacher of magic at his age is a bit too hasty. He will do it eventually once he becomes a little bigger. Her mother has taken his father's side since he was still a kid. He tried to act as appropriate for his age as best he could. Playing the part of an ideal child was for the sake of preserving that comfortable environment in the family. Whenever he laughed, his mother would smile and his father's tired expression would soften. It was his first time experiencing it ever since he was born. His eyes widen and frozen at first when Esri asks him if he wants to suck at her 2 melons since it has been a long time since the last. It seems like he didn't know what to do but to yell at his mother because, hello, he was still a man though his body was still a child. If he does it, 100% his little dragon might get angry and become as hard as a rock. Anyway, Cyan calls him to come with him so they leave his mother in the room. In the Tuatha Dé family, starting from infancy, they proactively train to stimulate brain activity, understand their regular physical abilities, and undertake exercise that's been adapted accordingly for them. His father is personally conducting that efficient training program so that they can go from basic survival skills to rules written in stone that he could use in real battle when mastered. The concept, handling, the means of that world, he has acquired a lot from his father. And that day, he was going to steal his father's techniques as well. He kept following his father when he suddenly stopped because he noticed that the place has no window, so he assumed that it may be the area that's off limits. Then his father bent down to remove a small door that led to a basement. They went inside and his father asked him to hold a light. On their way, Cyan suddenly asked him to recite their family motto, why their family medical arts are used for the sake of the country, and last, for what sake the Tuatha Dé's assassination techniques used. He smoothly recites it all until they reach the lower part of the basement. His eyes widened and speechless in shock when he saw the prison. According to his father, they were gathered from their territory as well as others, people who are out of place from the rationale of human society. They are criminals condemned to death. Then he told his father that he understood because for Tuatha Dé, there is no better teaching material than that. Cyan seems confused at him because when he was first brought into that basement, he was dismayed and criticized his father because of his humane point of view. He gave Lug a dagger and asked him to kill 5 people for him. He went to the prisoners, but before he did, he asked his father about the picture in the book that his mother read him. They said that life is precious. Cyan also twilight him to love thy neighbor. So why they raise him to hesitate when killing people because those feelings get in the way? Because in his previous life, he was raised to believe that human life is insignificant. He would never hesitate when killing people, and up to that moment, he didn't even recall feeling guilty. His parents have been trying to raise him with a vigorous and wholesome heart. However, his father told him that they are human beings and not tools. After what he heard, he killed 5 people. He thought that he understood half of it, but didn't understand the other half. However, he won't run away because that is a necessary right in order to live as Lug Tuatha Dé. When he became 7 years old, he still couldn't use magic, but he was already teaching himself to use magical power. But simply enchanting his body with magical power, it'll serve as armor as well, so he'll be able to boost his physical ability. Nonetheless, he went to a forest to hunt. He follows a few rabbits and uses his bow and arrow to catch them. He did, but didn't know where it fell. His eyes widened when he saw the rabbit fall on a girl's lap. His eyes widened because he can see the girl's garden as her legs wide open. It looks like it was his first time seeing such a beautiful garden. Anyway, the girl was furious because of the event. Then a servant rushed towards him, yelling at him to get away from her lady. The servant was stunned when he simply avoided her strike. The servant was irate and asked him where he appeared from behind. The girl stops her servant because she notices his attire, that he was the boy from the Tuatha Dé estate. She also added that Lug was her disciple, then she introduced herself as Daya the Corns, the master of magical. Daya asked him about his age, so he told that he's 7 years old. She told him that although she's just 7 years old, her magic is FSR better than adults. His parents were looking at them because his father made a request from the Vicorn family to teach him some magic. Cyan threatens him that if he ends up wasting Daya's time, he'll cease his training. She was the teacher who they finally found for him. He thought that there's no way he can run from this, so he better prove his talent. So he told Daya that he was humbly and sincerely praying for her benevolent guidance and encouragement. The girl smiles because he doesn't need to be formal. Then she shows him a foul stone, a gem that's created in her territory. She will use it to measure his magical capacity. He took the stone and was surprised because that stone is an item that's imbued with magic. When Daya saw that he released his magic on the stone, she noticed that Lug was able to maintain that much release for a minute. When he doesn't stop, Daya's eyes widen and scream that his magical capacity is irregular. Lug told her that his capacity is certainly large, but he's aware that the amount he can release isn't that much. But he was confused because no matter how large he makes a fuel's tank capacity, it's completely pointless if the horsepower itself is low. That's why he needs that stone, because he can't kill the hero with horsepower like that. Because if he unleashes power amassed in that stone, he'll be able to supplement the amount of instantaneous magical power he releases, which is his weakness. So he asks Daya if he can have the stones, if possible a lot of them. The latter declined because it was only given to the people of her territory since it's a cherished item to them. Out of the blue, Daya drops her jaw when Lug quickly throws the stone. His parents were surprised by his actions. Cyan was amazed by the large amount of light in the sky that's created. After that, he asks Daya if he can have some stone. The latter yells at her and declines his request. As the result of his action, Daya examined his sorcery attributes with a somewhat complicated expression. It didn't seem like she could surpass her astonishment at the fact that Lug was an all-magic user who could handle all the basic attributes. That means he has finally managed to confirm that he has the 4 elements which she requested from the goddess. Anyway, Daya seems frustrated and decides to teach Lug magic. She told him to relax his body and surrender it to her. Because the use of magic requires the transformation of magical attributes. Because she was going to transform the magical power of Lug as a demonstration. Then she starts to lean towards him and untie the lace on his clothes. Their faces and bodies were inches apart. Daya promises him that his first-time experience will be much more lovely than anyone else. But her jaw dropped and stopped her doing when she realized the words that she used, so she told him that she didn't mean any weird things. Then, she touched Lug's chest and started to climb on his lap to sit in front of him so that they can face to face. The latter seems to be trembling his whole body, even the little dragon that he's been hiding, for what Daya was doing to him. The comfort and the sensation that he was feeling in his mind, body, and on his skin. He never did that before with any other girl besides her, so he can't make a comparison. Lug assumed that Daya was an expert. He was blushing after that and thanked her for that lovely experience. Then he showed Daya the ball of light in his hand. The latter commented that his magical transformation was still rough around the edges. She was right, because his magical power used when he fails an attribute transformation ends up being lost. If he ends up stuck in weird habits, he'll suffer with losses throughout his life. Daya observed that he was starting to improve and found that Lug is an amazing boy. Meanwhile, they were both speechless when a vast of light emerged on his head. Lug's eyes widened because of the words and shape on it. Looks like he had a revelation according to Daya, so she welcomed him to the world of magic. Lug's jaw dropped when Daya gave him a medal that materialized out of thin air. According to Daya, that is the very first magic for the earth attribute, and it's what occurred to him earlier. That is soft lead, but if he trains, he'll be able to produce iron, which is even tougher. Lug thought that lead doesn't really improve into iron, and Daya was actually demonstrating, but it's amazing. He should be able to produce all sorts of possibilities depending on his ideas. So he told her that he'd like to try it out too. But speaking of those mysterious words, he can't read the glyphs, so he begged her to teach him how to read them. There are 36 words depending on how he combines the magical words. Their sounds change, which means that there are easily 114 different kinds of patterns. So they end up trying to memorize them together. But it looks like Lug was having a hard time memorizing it. Daya was furious because how can he be able to recite them after just hearing them once? He was confident in his memory, so he still tries to memorize them, but in the end, his tongue isn't keeping up. In the assassin trade, having great memory is an important factor when they are infiltrating all sorts of organizations in countries all over the world. He was grasping the know-how to boost his memory ability beyond what he was born with. And even during his childhood there, he's putting that into practice. They read it again and try it out for real. His eyes widened when he finally did it. Its size and shape is certainly warped compared to Daya's, but it's his very own magic. The latter understood him because he felt ecstatic during her first time too. She also said that if he keeps on using it steadily, other new magic will form in his mind. Lug assumes that the more he uses magic, the more new incantations he'll find, and then he will just chant them. He notices something, so he asks Daya if it's possible if he doesn't particularly wait for them to take in if he recites incantations that someone else transcribed for him. If couldn't anyone use new magic that way? Daya was speechless and seemed bewildered when Lug asked her to try writing out an incantation on the paper that's different. The latter couldn't believe that Lug managed to make it as iron. She was curious because even though it seems so obvious being told that, why hasn't anyone thought of that idea up to that moment? Lug thought that it's strange for nobody in that world to have noticed it. It means that due to the influence of the structure of that world where one can only use magic the god grants, so only those who possess the skill chant weaving like him are able to escape from that influence. So he told Daya that there are similarities between a 2 incantation. He showed her the paper where 2 incantation are 95 the same. They could assume to her it's possible that they portion indicates the process by which metal is produced, and the remaining 5% is used to designate the metals created. So he explained Daya, who were still amazed, to write all the inksnathar she knew to demonstrate and show him the effects. The more samples they have, the more accurate the analysis. He also added that those magical words have only even been recited without knowing any of their meanings. If they can decipher the reason for their formation and the laws of the incantation, then they can discover new magic with their very own hands. When he notices that Daya seems hesitant and frozen because he knew he was asking too much, he promises to give her a satisfactory token of gratitude. It looks like at first, his words didn't sink in on Daya's mind because later on she told Lug that she was enthusiastic since it sounds amazing. She also said not to worry on thanking her because she would like to clarify the meanings of the incantation and produce new magic as well. Lug was satisfied, so they decided to do it together. Afterwards, when Lug along with his parents was having a meal, he took his food and asked Daya to go to his room and find something. Esri seems shy on Daya because of his poor manner, but the latter just smiles at her and apologizes because she too seems excited. When they were in his room, Daya told him that they could do it while eating, but Lug ignores her and starts to read the book. He furrowed his brow when he noticed some numbers written on it because there's no way that it is random. If he refers to that replacement with the numbers and magical words that he got from Daya to write out and apply suitable values, the 3 numbers represent relative weight, melting point, and atomic weight. Then he was able to craft whatever metal he desired. It looks like Daya was confused and thought Lug was kidding because she never heard of magic that produces silver before. But the problem is, incantations are things that are granted by the gods in that world. He started to feel that some sort of secret was hidden. His deep thoughts were cut off when Daya managed to make a silver after chanting that he wrote out and wanted to try writing new incantations as well. Daya was delighted when Lug told her that he will teach her the numbers for gold, and it looks like he was now the teacher and not the other way around. Anyway, he was irate when he found out that he wasted his precious rank skill because it's so easy to make magic and he didn't need a chant weaving. If he further alters that and activates the incantations and also uses magic, he can freely transform the metal, then presto, he obtained titanium and tungsten knives. He was satisfied because he'll be able to make a thing now. Afterwards, his jaw dropped when Daya suddenly fell on the ground and looked weak. According to her, she put the numbers and tried to make gold, but the inside of her head suddenly blocked out. Lug furrowed his brow because he learned that that place is designed so that a strong reaction would occur if someone who doesn't possess chant-weaving attempt to alter incantation. Then he told her not to force herself. To his surprise, Daya told him that she figured the reason why he could produce magic was because he has some sort of skill, but she managed to make silver by looking at his incantations. That means if she can think up incantations and get Lug to record them, they'll be able to perform magic. The latter can see that Daya was excited, so he reminds her to prepare herself because they will do it all night. He thought it's been 9 days since Daya came and found out that she was surprisingly lonely and spoiled. So when Daya came with a pillow, he seemed agitated because it meant she was going to sleep with his bed. She even went overboard because she tightly hugged as if he was a pillow, like some kind of a thing that a married couple usually do. He let out a sigh because he couldn't move because of her. She even orders him to be his big sister that he must obey. Afterwards, over 10 days, they wrote various kinds of magic and sought out patterns. Daya's sensibility helped him out quite a lot. That day, he managed to arrive at one of the magics that he's been aiming for. He created a gun that uses magic to fire bullets. He boosts the magical power inside the barrel and ignites it. The tungsten bullets are given extremely high-speed spin from the rifling and are fired straight ahead. The shock from the recoil is suppressed by strengthening his physical power at the moment of discharge. Compared to the magic that he experienced, it has superior range, stopping power and accuracy. The bullets remain unlimited as well so long as he has magical power. However, it's a whole different story when it comes to killing the hero, because there's a need to crush the opponent along with their entire hand considering that they have highly strengthened physical power and are highly defensive. For that, he created something more powerful and was about to test it. He asks Daya to cover her ears, then it creates something big. Daya was shocked because it clearly can overkill with such firepower. But he didn't pay attention to her since there's still some issues left. Whether or not it'll work, the hero has an immeasurable number of hands he could play. His attention caught when Daya asked him the name of those he created. The shotgun will be called gunfire, while the other one is cannon fire. He suddenly smiles when Daya jumps in joy because she finds those names cool. He doesn't understand, but being with her like that, he was surprisingly having fun. Lug shows Daya the result of their magical experiments. The latter was amazing because it's light and surprisingly sharp. It's already on par with the demonic blade. He agrees with her because it's the reason why he cannot approve mass-producing or supplying it to soldiers. Daya responded that she was fully aware that if the knife were spread, it would become fuel for trouble. She asks if it's alright to tell it to her trustworthy knight because they all keep their lips zipped. Lug told her the tiff she gave it to them and kept the fact that it was made with magic a secret, then it's fine. He also explains to her that the magic that they created can never leak to the world. Even the gunfire must be limited to only when their life is endangered. Daya was teary-eyed and thanked him for that. He even gave her a sword as an expression of gratitude because he wouldn't have been able to use magic if she didn't teach him. Daya hugged the sword and thanked him for meeting him and was able to make magic. Tears wanted to run down her face and promise she's going to make lots of magic even if she returns. And when they meet again, she wants him to write out all the incantations. He was surprised when Daya admitted that she had a lifetime's worth of excitement and thrills after encountering Lug. She didn't want to end the day, but it was her last day in his territory, so they made a pinky promise to meet again. He was surprised when Daya suddenly hugged him because he knew there was something he had never felt before. That feeling that's clenching his chest and making him think that he wants to be with her and doesn't want to be separated. He was going to gain those emotions one by one in his second life. Then it's Daya's time to leave Tuatha'd's territory. The family stood on the gate until her carriage left. But before she left, she looked out of the window with a teary eye and yelled at Lug, claiming that she would definitely come again. Her words hit the latter, so he immediately rode in on a horse and followed the carriage until they could see each other. Daya throws her the foul stone and asks him to never forget her. He was surprised because even though she already said that they never gave it out to people from other countries, she still gave it to him. Then Daya burst into tears of sadness. She even requested him that no matter what happened, he must come galloping by. Lug smiles at her and shows his pinky finger showing that it's a promise. Then he stood there until he couldn't see the carriage. Furthermore, in the state of Swoigel, country of Vikhorn, Daya was still sad and just looked into the medal on her hand. The servant seems worried because it's been 7 days, yet she still gets depressed easily. She was in her room, but she couldn't help but think about Lug. Then an idea pops up in her mind, so she suddenly covers her body with a blanket and does something. Then, she noticed something on her window, so she walked toward it but saw nothing. Her eyes widen when a familiar voice asks her if she manages to make new magic. She turned around and couldn't control her emotions. So Lug asked her to be quiet since it was already late, and he was not going to stay long. Daya was confused and lowered her voice while asking her that there's 2 mountains between their territories, so how did he manage to come to her place? Lug explains to her that he is secretly escaping past the national border and infiltrating her state without anyone noticing. Because it's his promise to her, to train more. Daya let out a sigh, but then she immediately punished him by making him her pillow until she fell asleep. Lug agrees with her since he wanted to see her anyway. Daya blushes because of his words, then she immediately took the gap between them and hugged him. They both lie on the bed content. Lug thought that such senseless behavior would have never been conceived by his original self, but he's now started to like this sort of thing. He was not going to mindlessly obey somebody's orders anymore and do what he wanted to do because he didn't know when the next time would be, being with her. Since then, he has been producing many magics and assembling powerful weapons. All that's left is an assassin's assistant. There's a limit to what a person can do alone, so he needs a team, a subordinate that he can manipulate such sorcerers. But there weren't any in that country, so he had no choice but to make contact with other countries. He also plans to visit Daya the next day. On his way, he notices someone's foot being overshadowed by some branch of trees. So he removed it and found a dirty child under it. The girl suddenly stood up and asked him if she was in Tuatha D because a traveler told her they are rich. He ignores the girl instead. He asks her why she was in the deep forest like that. The girl burst into tears and said that it's because she was useless. They were poor, and since the winter is coming, they were reducing the numbers of mouths to feed. Even if she returns to her village, she'll just get driven away. She suddenly came close to him and asked if there was any work for her. She didn't mind cleaning excrement and was willing to do anything just to get a job, so she was able to feed herself. Lug held her and was trying to stop because she was already holding his clothes. Then his eyes widen when the foul stone that he got from Daya is reacting, so he assumes if the girl was a sorcerer. But it looks like the girl was not aware of it. He let out a sigh when the girl suddenly sat on the ground and ate. He started to interrogate her about her name and age. According to the girl, her name is Talt and she is 10 years of age. Since she was looking for a job, he introduced himself as the son of Tuatha Dez and asked her to become his sole servant because he was pleased with the girl. She, being abandoned, is perfect. She also concluded that it is futile to return to her village and had already sought out ways of survival. Being able to choose the proper actions during extreme situations is an important quality for an assassin, so he told her that his help is necessary. But Talt suddenly burst into tears because it's the first time she heard that she was needed. She's always been called unnecessary and cast away for being a burden. He immediately hugged Talt, but the latter was hesitant since she was dirty and might dirt his clothes. He told her his name and said that he meets her. Talt was amazed because the words she heard some time ago in her dreams that she would have a fateful encounter were true. Lug was stunned because their encounter seems conducted by the goddess, but he didn't mind and took advantage of that opportunity. The girl promises that she will do her best for Lug's sake. Lug agrees with her and asks to work for him forever as a superior assistant for his assassination. A servant was teaching Talt a meal for Lug, but it looks like she failed. So the servant comforts her since their master will be pleased with anything, then she asks Talt to bring that breakfast to Lug. Talt entered the room and found that Lug was still sleeping. She was confused because it was rare for him to oversleep, so she called him again, but it seems it's useless. So she whispered to him that if he didn't wake up, she was going to fool him around. So she was about to show him her big bumper when Lug suddenly woke up. The latter greeted her and said that he dreamt of her the first time he encountered her, the day in the winter 2 years ago. Talt was embarrassed because that time, she was dirty and had nothing but skin and bones. Then she walked into the window and parted the curtains while telling him that his father wanted to see him after his breakfast. But as soon as she does, Lug tests her and knocks the fork on a metal, that's why she immediately takes out her weapon. That event also showed her return kitty. Anyway, Lug seemed satisfied because she hadn't neglected her training and she was really doing well for her. He thought she's not only being refined as a noble servant, she's also being taught assassination techniques as his assistant. She was infatuated with him because of the circumstances when they first met. Plus, by applying brainwashing techniques that he learned while he was still alive, he has inspired her undying loyalty. She worships and depends only on him. However, since he could see her garden covered with just a piece of cloth, he told her to pay attention to her appearance. So she immediately lowered her skirt and apologized for her unsightly appearance. He thought about his father. He predicted that that moment had arrived at last. After that, he went to his father's room. He was asked about Talt, so he explained to him he's been continually monitoring her over the last 2 years, but she's still innocent for the time being. His father was suspecting that Talt was a spy sent to steal their family's techniques, but it looks like she was not, so he left it to Lug to look after her. He asked his father if that's all he wanted to talk about. He was not surprised when his father told him that he was going to grant him the Tuatha Dez secret technique because his waiting ended at last. As Lug Tuatha D, his hair is silver like his mother, but his eye color doesn't match either of his parents. Although his mother has bright blue eyes and his father has gray, his eyes are black. But that's because his father changed his black eyes to gray ones after birth. And that is due to a secret technique called Tuatha des demonic eyes. Anyway, his father told him that he was going to perform the procedure himself. He assumed that Lug was not afraid of someone operating his body because rest assured, it was absolutely a success. Lug thought that when Cyan acted as the head of the Tuatha family, he was a genuine professional. As long as his father got that scalpel, he will never fail. After the operation, Talt was relieved along with Cyan when he finally woke up. He immediately asks regarding his eyes if it doesn't look off. According to Talt, he was lovely before, but he is much lovelier now that he changed his eyes. However, his father interrupted them and said that they will be moving on to the second subject. His father asked him to fight him with those eyes. That may be a training, but it's also a test. If he can both overcome that and the final test, his father will recognize him as the next family head of the Tuatha the assassin aristocracy. His father wants him to show him his true power. Lug smiles because at last, it finally happened. Afterwards, night came. Lug was hiding in the dark because assassins didn't involve exposing themselves and firing at each other. The both of them hide themselves, hold their breath and seek out the opponent, then try to make their first move. He was about to look around when a poison arrow suddenly struck him. That's why he learns that his father is truly merciless. He has confidence in his ability to hide his presence, but a rabbit suddenly appears, so he needed to drive it away because it's dangerous. He formed an evil smile since he managed to identify his father's location based on the arrow's trajectory and angle. He concealed the branches using magic the moment he kicked away and traveled on them like they're solid. He caught his father and quickly struck him. But his knife was being caught by his father, but still he managed to seize it. They start to attack each other with those demonic eyes. His field of vision has widened. His visual for catching moving objects have been drastically enhanced. Then his father created a magical attack. Luckily, he avoided it because those demonic eyes he possessed can illuminate magical power. He was about to strike his father, but he didn't notice his father's legs kick him on the side. As a result, he vomited some blood and was thrown away. He was aching and was worried if some of his ribs might have broken. His brain isn't processing the amount of information perceived by those demonic eyes fast enough, so it's screaming. But it subsided because of his hyper-regeneration and unbound growth limit powers. His brain will adapt to be able to tolerate the amount of information even the pain is gradually subsiding. He formed an evil smile because his father was cunning using a trap with the expectations that he would shift his focus to that newfound ability, which can see magical power since he already read all of his possible attacks. But that's all enough, because he was determined to win. Lug hid in a large tree, but curious where his father was coming. He sensed a killing intent then in an instant. A knife suddenly appeared an inch before his eyes, but he bent down to avoid it. Then another knife was approaching him, a deceptive coming from his father. He bent again to dodge the knife. He doesn't know how his father managed to throw two knives from different locations and learned that was a feint too. But his father didn't realize that he already knew that he was going to attack him from behind, because he already took his knife on his back and struck it to his father. As a result, he won against his father, because he deliberately moved his vitals out of the way and used his flesh to stop his father's blade, thinking he could win by taking such a risk. His father couldn't believe that he lost to a 12-year-old child. He thought he was the strongest Tuatha in history, but he was not. To think Lug limited his use of mana as much as possible and didn't use any kind of spell. That means the battle was pointless. He told his father because he said that it was both test and training, but he can't learn techniques or anything in practice by just overpowering someone with all his might. Cyan was amazed because Lug clearly saw BJ's intentions that he wasn't looking for victory or defeat. What he was trying to look for was if he could remain focused on his objective without being bewildered by what's in front of him, because that quality is key for an assassin. His father laughed at him because there's nothing else he could teach him. Luf didn't agree because he was still not good enough, so his father told him he taught what he wanted to teach him, and he's able to input it all into practice as well. Going forward, he should walk in his own path and continue to search for whatever he needs to become stronger. Lug agrees and is glad that he was reincarnated to be his son. Furthermore, Lug made time to converse with the populace lately and act as the next family head. In the world, nobles have powerful influence and protect their territories with their magical powers and skills, and for that protection, the populace pays taxes. However, one can't secure the people's hearts with an iron fist. The rules of a territory need to help out and raise their reputation as well. That means putting in effort every day for everything. He passed the test and was formally selected as candidate for the next Tuatha the family head. Thus, it's worthwhile to make himself seen in public as well. Plus, their relatives who are descendants of branch families have visited, so he needs to be recognized by them as well. On the other hand, a man was frustrated, yelling that he would not recognize Lug. For him, he should have been next in line for the family head after Louth, and yet, they chose a young man like Lug. He also claimed that it's obvious he's much stronger than the latter. Cyan observes that the man, Renaha, isn't satisfied with his son, so he asks the latter to tell them what the assassin to be ideally selected as the head of the family. Renaha told them that it would have to be the strongest one. No matter the target, he would beat the life out of its face to face. Lug heads hurt for that answer because Renaha didn't know even the basics. While Cyan furrowed his brow, but he handled his frustration. So for the argument's sake, he asks Renaha if he would recognize Lug as the next family head if the latter could prove that he was stronger than him. Renaha agreed and said that if he beat Lug, he would take the seat of the family head. So Cyan announced to prove his strength at that moment. Renaha's eyes widened in terror when Lug suddenly appeared behind him with a knife cut to his neck. He couldn't move an inch. Cyan seemed satisfied by Lug's action. Since he predicted what would happen from his conversation, erased his presence and HJD in Renaha's blind spot. He also added that if Lug wanted to, he could have killed him right that moment without a chance to fight back. He also explains that assassination is when the enemy dies before even knowing what happened. They are different from knights, so it concerns him that he got the wrong idea. Lug released Renaha, who was furious, but it looked like the latter couldn't take his shame of being defeated. So he immediately rushed towards Lug and was about to punch him, but the latter seemed well trained because he sensed it was coming. He dodged it and broke his arm by simply elbowing it. Then Cyan asks Renaha if he already understands because even if he were to fight Lug normally, the latter is the stronger one. He also explains that an assassin is third-rate the moment they get trapped in a battle, but it can no longer be considered an assassination. However, strength is required. They hone their combat technique every day to prepare for those moments. Then his father turns to the other relatives and asks if he is capable of being the next family head. He assures them the Lug is a prodigy capable of exceeding him in both healing and assassination. However, Lug thought that his father used Renaha in order to get their relatives recognize him as his son. He was truly a cunning father. Afterwards, Log went to the balcony where he found Renaha, who was drinking alcohol. But the latter was irate and asked him if he was there to insult him. It's pathetic that he was defeated by someone who's 4 years younger than him. He also added that the rumors were true of him defeating the strongest in their family in all of history. That means he stood no chance of winning to begin with. Log smiles and agrees with him and says that he doesn't need to win, because if he will become the family head, their family will prosper further. While he was a Tuatha De Knight, he and his resourcefulness would help maintain it. He also praises Renaha's ego, who is truly stronger than any knights in the imperial capital. The latter was surprised when he gave him a sword as a present because it suited him more than a knife. When he becomes his subordinate, he wants Renaha to freely swing Tuatha's sword. But the latter didn't take him seriously. In fact, he smirked at him, took the sword and left. That's why Lug let out a sigh. But on his way, Lug heard Renaha say that he understands that he was not suited for something pretty low assassination. He promised that he will become the knight that Lug desires one day. He asks him to do his part as well, which is why Lug smiles and promises to do their best. He thought he had now acquired a superior knight candidate. The moment he formally becomes family-based, he will make good use of him. On their way home, the two praise each other for their magnificent job. It seems Lug clearly understands why he was dragging him around in both public and hidden faces. He also added that Lug is suited to be an assassin, frighteningly so. Then Cyan told him to discuss his final test and asked him what he should do to close in on a vigilant target. In response, he told his father that he will disguise his status. It's even more favorable if he is someone who exists in a family register. According to his father, he was right because ever since he was born, he has had 3 faces. The eldest son of the Baron family, the son of a blacksmith, Safil Agma, and the unfaithful son of the world-class Balor company, Ilg Balog. For 2 years starting now, he will travel to the town of Malchu as Ilg Balor and train as a merchant. Lug smiles because he will learn about the world, build connections, and set up an information network. Cyan was sure that the last test will be useful to Lug later on. Afterwards, Lug went to the commercial town of Malchu. Gathering intel from around the world, he was sure that he would find this way. He only has 2 years, but he'll use those 2 years to further establish himself as an assassin noble and introduce himself as Ilg Balor. He went to commercial town of Malchu, a lovely town with all kinds of shops lined up side by side. If possible, he'd like to make use of that town later on even as Lug Tuatha D. However, a man named Balor Baemnech, the current head of the Balor company, a massive enterprise worldwide, apologized to him for summoning him all of a sudden. Lug, also known as Ilg Balor, was a son born by his lover, but in order to displease his real wife, he lived a life of seclusion. After his real wife's son fell ill, he was immediately called back home as a precaution, and he is currently serving and training in the company. That is the designated setting for the current him. Anyway, according to Baemnech, he was helping out with forging Lug's family register and introduced him to business at the beginning because it's his way of repaying Cyan. However, he was delighted that Ilg has truly served him well, negotiating the purchase of the famed textiles of the eastern provinces that they had great trouble with, and brilliantly solving the issue of Marquis Halvy's unreasonable orders was incredibly refreshing. Ilg laughs because his father appears to be approaching recovery, and that is what matters most. Baemnech also told him that his contributions to the company are plain to anyone's eyes, so it wouldn't be strange if he will take over the reins of the company. Having to get medical for his real son's incurable illness has caused his debts to increase conversely. Ilg disagrees with his father because they have been receiving plenty of payments and his earnings have been immense. Balor laughs at him because he can relax after hearing it. Then his father showed him a map to check a location to set up a shop. The Balor family are developing all sorts of stores like daily necessities, foods and drinks, arms and medicine, but they cannot just stay content with what they have. So Ilg told his father that the new store they make will differ from their existing stores, as they are intended to search for alternate pathways so they will serve as models. His father seems satisfied that he will entrust the new stores to him. He promises Ilg a fitting status and rewards the moment that project succeeds. He also added that that is not something he'd ask for a newbie, but it is clear that what he's done over the past 6 months is not typical. He forms a smile and asks his father to leave everything to him because merchant status and information network, he will definitely succeed and acquire them all. After that, he went home and was greeted by a very nice-looking lady named Maha, an orphan that he adopted. Originally, she was a daughter of a merchant, but because she received a high-level education prior to the loss of her parents, she's intelligent as well. If he were to train her further, he would be able to delegate work to her in the company in no time. Like Talt, although she may have an ordinary bloodline Z, she does possess magical power. The reason he adopts her is to make her a member of his assassination team. Anyway, Maha cooked a meal for him, and he found it delicious, and the latter was delighted that he liked her cooking. He adopted her 4 months ago. Weakened from constant abuse in the orphanage, she became extremely distrustful of other people, and that's exactly why she was easy to handle. She is searching for somebody she could trust like a big brother. Why freely utilizing his brainwash technique, he slipped into her heart and deeply planted a strong affection and loyalty towards him. And with that, she came to follow him like an older brother. However, Maha notices that she became silent, so she asks him what's the matter. She seems not convinced when he tells her that it's nothing. She was about to say something when Talt suddenly came into his house. His eyes widened when Talt suddenly appeared and looked furious, then gave the things that he asked for. He told her that she came back in such a rush when he told her to relax a bit over at Tuatha Dé. Talt was still furious and disagreed with him because as long as she was serving as his personal servant, she must always return as soon as possible. She looks jealous when she sees that Maha is having a diner with him, so the latter went to the kitchen to cook more food since Talt was already home. Ilg suddenly smiles when the latter changes her expression and even smiles at him. She also brought a pumpkin pie that she personally made, because it reminds him when he was still in Tuatha. Even though they're in the assassination business, their family remains cozy. It was quite difficult when he first adopted Maha since she was always depressed, and whenever he called out to her, she would throw a startled gaze at him. Talt was in the same situation too. But that moment exists, eating together, because they overcome those times as a family. Anyway, Maha asked him about what sort of store he was considering opening. In response, he told them that the store was intended for women in particular. He's going to open a store that sells cosmetics for nobles and ladies young and old. Maha find it nice, but that business has been good and in demand lately. However, there are many cosmetic stores in Malchu, so he had to give a good reason why people would choose to go to a new store. Ilg told them not to worry because he had a secret plan. Furthermore, they were all surprised when someone knocked on the door that late night. When Maha opens the door, a man abruptly apologizes for coming late. He was Brez Sama. When Ilg knew he welcomed him and told that they were just about to start the lesson. Like Talt, Ilg was holding necessary lessons at night for the sake of teaching necessary knowledge about the assassination business to Maha as well. Brez is the third non-blood sibling he has. When he allowed him to visit his house in order to help cure his illness, it seems he saw what the lessons were like and got interested in them, so he sometimes comes asking to join in. He isn't aware about his falsified birth and so on. He only knows he is the son of a mistress. From his point of view, Ilg was a brilliant little brother who suddenly appeared one day and is threatening his status as the heir. Usually one would expect jealousy or hostility, but for some reason, he is getting attached to him like that, and Elias went asking him to teach him. He don't particularly hate Brez and don't think there would be value in making use of him as a superior merchant, but maybe he was plotting something so he must stay vigilant. Anyway, his secret plan for the new product doesn't exist in that world, but it was common in his previous world. If he can market that to that world, the common knowledge of cosmetics in that world will completely change. Afterwards, he went to meet his so-called father and his stepmother to present that product. According to Balor, he was aware of his capability, but he was confused that he could prepare a sample of the main product that quickly. His stepmother yells at him that he shall not be forgiven if the product is something trivial, and even if it isn't, she will still despise him. Ilg is just silent at her since she despises him, just because she thinks he was some born child from a prostitute. Baemnech admitted that the new store being a cosmetics boutique, it really doesn't pique his interest. Brand comes first when it comes to cosmetics, so they are at a disadvantage starting late. He didn't mind their comment instead, asked permission from his stepmother to ask questions. Then he questioned her if she ever experienced skin damage the following morning after painfully cleaning away the cosmetics with just soap the night before. In response, his stepmother told him that it's only natural because women all use cosmetics for the sake of beauty. So he told her that he admired the female enthusiasm toward beauty. However, it's also a reality that it causes a vicious cycle. Women happy heavy cosmetics once more to hide damaged SKM, which in turn only further damages skin. That will liberate women from such worries. Then he showed them his new product, the milky lotion. His stepmother found his product nonsense, so he told her to take the lotion and spread it around her palm, then apply it onto her face, but she had to make sure it soaks in. Well, people in the past, when it came to cosmetics, they always decorated their skin extravagantly. So Lug tries to learn everything in the world. Cosmetics are used to decorate and bring out beauty, but the milk lotion is something that heals the original skin and preserves it, bringing natural beauty. Anyway, his stepmother did what he said. After that, her eyes widen as her jaw drops because she finds it impossible. That milky lotion is soaking and moisturizing her skin. She commented that her skin was silky smooth. He couldn't believe that she suffered for decades when there's a product that could solve it. If she is properly maintained, it will protect against cosmetic skin damage. Coated skin becomes smooth and will stay on her skin. Anyway, she cleared her throat and said that although he despised Ilgi, she admitted that the milky lotion is a wonderful product, indeed. Then she took the bottle on her way out and asked him to quickly prepare another 3 or maybe 5 bottles more. Baemnech, who remained silent, took a bottle and had some lotion. He asks his wife if she thinks that milky lotion will be desired amongst her friends. In response, the stepmother told Baemnech that she cannot imagine any woman who would not want that. He was planning to disparage anything Ilg were to present, but after getting her hands on the lotion, such thoughts are completely blown away. If it's for the sake of more lotions, she would even call Ilg's son as his own. Baemnech seen that the milky lotion is incredible, but Ilg need to tell him about the prospect of that product. So the latter raised the bottle and said that the milky lotion will cause a revolution in cosmetics. Every lady who uses cosmetics will find it natural to apply that product. It will create a new custom for which there is no substitute among any previous cosmetics until that moment. Balor stood up and seemed satisfied with his answer. He also urged Ilg to take the plunge, pouring in the resources of the Balor company. He even asked Ilg on how much he can produce a week because he was free to hire people. But Ilg refused since it would be too hasty to hire people. The likelihood of their formula being stolen by other companies would increase. He has good points since to establish their brand, they would need to monopolize the market. Then he plans on arranging 2 assignments from his trustworthy lineage. Then his wife, Mira, will distribute them with friends and ladies of none and wealthy families to spread hearsay of that milky lotion among the rich and powerful. After all, Ilg summoned his wife for that purpose. However, Ilg told the couple that it would take a month for a production line to be prepared, but the water and oil used for that milky lotion can be found in Tuatha Dé. He also added if they invite doctors to work in Maltu, the risk that it may leak to other companies would increase. So naturally, they wouldn't want the secret medicine to leave their country. Thus, in exchange for having it made in Tuatha Dé, they will swear to protect the secret of the medicine and also to not sell it to other companies. They have to make sure those are strictly adhered to. Bamnech was impressed, so he decided to leave the negotiation to Ilg. However, the thing that binds water and oil is lecithin. Its true identity is a plant-based natural emulsifier. The raw material being soybeans, so he explained the process to Talt, but it looked like she couldn't understand. The truth is he cannot complete the milky lotion without an emulsifier. The lecithin formula will be a secret even to Bamnech. If he succeeds with the projects, he will become the representative of the Balor company, just as his so-called father promised. With that, his reputation will be echoed throughout the world. So Ilg needs to be successful, and there's no way he will fail. If he became the representative of the brand, Ilg Balor would gain prestige. With such high status, he would become well known among the rich and powerful as well. It would become easy to get close to his assassination target. If he were to end up with that sort of status, he was sure he is bound to have people targeting him. But it's favorable for him. Furthermore, it's been half a year since their new brand dealing in cosmetics started up in Malchu. The milky lotion grew to the point where not a single soul didn't know its name. They were screaming and fighting over the product, and that sort of thing happens every day. However, the secret medicine lecithin has never been identified. It's because Tuatha Dé secrecy, not just Balor's diversionary tactics, are absolute. Other companies desire to sell milky lotions as well, but they haven't been able to grasp the formula after all. If a situation like that persists, there will definitely be cases where people will grow impatient. On the other hand, Ilg was pretending to be asleep in his room when Talt entered his room. Then the latter sit on BJS named and immediately pierced her spear on the ceiling. Ilg smiled because he was thinking about it long before, but Talt probably has the spearmancio skill. She notices that an intruder masked his presence and then instantly guards Ilg and intercepting. Then Maha obstructs his escape route and takes action to support Talt. The 2 ladies were shocked when Ilg suddenly get up on the bed and announced that they passed. Sensing the invasion thief, quickly deciding to deal with them and having a he ability to take action without hesitation, they magnificently cleared the standards he set for them. In that case, he can use them in real combat too. So he told them that he only allowed them to practice torture in classes, so that is the perfect time to finally test it out for real. He also added that he wants them to try to do it, while also trying to figure out how they'll be able to extort intel about his handler, while also preventing him from committing suicide. Maha asked him if they do it well, he will praise them. While Talt said that he will show mercy to someone who tried to do something awful at Ilg's, which is why the intruder widens his eyes in terror. Oldie thought that the 2 girls were absolutely precious. He thinks it's going to be a long night for them. Daya was delighted with how sweet and delectably bitter the chocolate she's been eating. She told Lug that she's thinking of putting up a candy business as well as Orna's cosmetics. But the latter seems busy writing incantations, and when he's finished, he immediately calls Daya. He was surprised when the latter snatched the paper and started to float the cup in front of them. The said magic was gravity inversion. Lug was delighted that she figured it out before him. Daya calls him thick-headed and shows him the book where a concept was written. That's why she figured it out. Lug forms a soft smile because Daya is already giving off the look of an older sister, so he told him that he was honored. He thought that now he can finish the ultimate killing magic he can conceive. He noticed that the sun was about to shine, so he waved goodbye to Daya and promised that he'll come again next month. Daya smiles at him, but the moment he jumps by the window, she seems disheartened. On the other hand, Maha was having a cup of coffee and thought about the Orna that Lug made 2 years ago, and the one that the matter brought up in that town of Maltu has been under her protection. It seems like she misses Lug since she was convincing herself that the latter must come back for her. She remembers the time when her father was a skilled merchant who brought her out of the countryside and managed to establish a company and vastly expand it in just one time. Even without a mother since she was little, she gave respect to his father as she was raised, hearing a motto that says she must doubt someone to believe them. When her father died, there was a man who's her father's right hand ever since they left the countryside, without any relatives. He's the only one she could rely on. He is the reason why she doubted and investigated men. And that's how she found out that he is the one who betrayed her father and led the thief into killing him. After he successfully usurped the company in the end, he tried to kill her too. That's why she ran as she hid in a corner of a wagon headed for the city of Malchu. She swore to eventually take back her father's company, no matter what. One day she will. Since that came, she tried to run her own business after gathering children on the street in the slums. She uses those children to go to the mountain to gather ice and firewood to sell cheaply around the slums and act as tour guide for her. Her father's education about business had saved her and everyone. She promised that when she became an adult, she was going to open a small store with everyone. But due to the large amount of subsidies, orphanages were built all around and the orphan hunt promptly began, so her naive dream ended there when she and her friends were caught and brought to the orphanage. There she met a young girl whose face seemed to be wrapped with bandages. While doing their work, the two heard a conversation regarding the little boy who tried to escape. According to them, they caught the boy, tied his arms and legs, and flogged him 100 times. A fat man said that if the number of brats they have reduces, they lose that much in subsidies as well. Maha was worried when she heard they start to talk about her. They plan to sell her. The man also admits that her posture lately has been tempting the man to force her down. The other man agrees with him because for them she is a jewel and virgin too. They can put a good price on her. So the fat man reminded his companion to make sure that Maha was given nutritious foods because they got to build up some proper meat in her. They also have to carefully watch her so she remains unsullied. They also thought that they could finally earn big money with a big shot, but the girl refused and stabbed her own. Maha was totally frightened upon hearing those words. She was calling for someone to save her. Then she had a dream about him, a man who can save him. Maha starts to strengthen her body with magic. Though she was not used to it, she's determined to reach the man in her dreams with all her might. When she finally got a chance to escape, she was unlucky because a man caught her. Her eyes widened in terror. Then the man grabs her hair, claiming that she was not the one who's hiding their magical power. She was crying in pain. Then the man was surprised when Ilg suddenly spoke behind him. The man turned around to look who he was, but he was shocked when he learned that it was Ilg. The man didn't move an inch when the latter immediately gave Maha his robe to cover her body. He told Maha that he noticed her eyes that spelled rescue her. That's why he decided to look into the orphanage a bit after that. And of course, he also includes the director's habitual as well. Then the director arrived, claiming that he was supposed to pick up Maha after 3 days, but he was already there. He told the director that HRE moment they signed the contract, Maha was already his property, so why were they holding her up for 3 days? The director was furious and told his companion to best Ilg since they already have Ilg's money. Maha warned the latter that the man knew magic, so he had to run. But her eyes widened when in an instant, Ilg beat the man. Ilg told the director, who seemed frightened in the corner, that he doesn't mind to use force when violence talks. The truth is, it was his forte. Maha knew that Ilg wasn't normal. If she takes his hand, she will no longer be normal as well. But she asks herself what's the difference. Ever since she fully matured, she survived by examining each day and every situation with those eyes of hers and making her own decisions. Therefore, there was no issue with Ilg being not normal, so she took the hand of her prince who was asking her to take her home. She was having second thoughts on trusting him because she had doubts. She conducts an investigation and observes everything about Ilg. Then she will decide whether to trust him or not. After all, her father taught her that it's her way of life. Anyway, she thought about Ilg. Even without him, she will protect the Orna and expand it even further. Her deep thoughts stop when a fat lady arrives. The lady was grateful to her for dealing with the documents. Her friend in the orphanage named Noin asks her to take a break. But Maha ignored her instead. She praised Noin that her expression had gotten natural. It means that her surgery was a success. The latter seemed shy and bowed her head because thanking Ilg was not enough. The fat lady interrupts them and asks about the store in the neighboring town. Maha winked at her and said that the store went perfectly since she managed to get her hands on it. Because it's one of the stores from the company her father founded. Ever since the man who betrayed her father became the boss, the company's been continually failing, and he has even started to resort to financing. Plus, one of the stores that was sold in the process was the first to be established by her father, and she has many memories of it. So at that moment, she held 2 dreams in her chest. The first one is to save her former friends just like how she was, and the second is to reclaim her father's company because it'll serve as the perfect foothold. So when Ilg gave his full trust to her and felt free to make her own decision, she was delighted because Ilg knew every little thing about her and made her dream come true. But of course, it's all because she was Ilg's magnificent right hand after all. His mother Ezri couldn't control her feelings when she saw him, so she immediately gave him a hug and kiss. Lug was frustrated, that's why he told his mom to refrain from doing such things in front of the servants because he has a status to maintain. But his mother ignores him because it's been too long since she has seen him. She smelled his hair and said that she was so lonely when he left, so he mustn't go out there again. Talt interrupts them and says that they must greet the master as well. Lug seems relieved because he can escape into his mother's arms. So he turned around and was about to leave when he heard her mother thanking Talt for always being there on his side. She even invited Talt to go in the bath together and tell her about his life in Molchu. Anyway, he went into his father's office immediately. And when he saw Lug sit, he seemed satisfied that he's all grown up, so the latter told his father that he turned 14 almost a month ago and became an adult. Lug became confused when his father told him that it's not what he meant. His father told him that his achievements in Molchu was magnificent because there isn't noble out there who doesn't know about Milky Lotion as well as Ilg Balor's cosmetics brand Orna. He also added that he must have seen their country because it was covered with VST soybean fields all over. They also keep receiving tokens of gratitude almost every day from countrymen who found out that Lug provided a route for them to trade raw soybeans at a high price, which are used as ingredients for Milky Lotion. Lug explains to his father that he certainly invented the flagship product, but everything beyond that was the doing of Balor. Baemnech cleverly utilized the fame achieved from the Milky Lotion to add brand value to ordinary cosmetics and rapidly redistribute the market share of the industry, so Orna became the top brand in the cosmetics world. He praised the man practically for being the ultimate merchant. He also added that he trembled seeing his skills firsthand, but he was so sure that there is more he could learn from him. His father was speechless for his achievements, so he said that since he was finally home, he will hold a grand feast that night. Lug agreed with his father and said that he too shall pour in his efforts to prepare a special stew. His father laughed besides it's too worrying since his stew is too delicious. After that they eat together as a family. Morning came. He felt at ease coming back to Tuatha Dé because it's truly wonderful. He lightly opened his eyes when he sensed someone was looking at him, so he greeted her mother and asked what she had been doing the whole morning. He suddenly gets up while his eyes wide open when his mother said how unfortunate she said that it would happen today because Talt already told her. He covered his face out of shame and admitted that it happened one autumn night in Maltium. That day was rather unbearably cold, so he slept with Talt and Maha. They were both young and lost their families, so they were desperate for affection in the bottom of their hearts. Due to that solitude, there were times when they wanted to snuggle and feel someone's warmth. Understanding that, he always ended up worrying about the girls as their guardian. However, it already happened. He woke up one morning with their presence, the two ladies turning red and covering their faces when they observed that his little dragon seemed to want to get away with its cage and enter something tight. Failing to grasp what happened and reacting slowly was a first time for Lug. The latter recalled that Maha used an imported perfume last night with an unfamiliar fragrance not handled in Orna. Her silky and glossy hair were endowed with a feminine charm while Talt wore a far thinner sleepwear than usual, and her slightly reddish skin coming from out of the bath was incredibly soft and warm. His mother understood that a young boy's physiological phenomenon cannot be underestimated. Even though he always played the role of their father or older brother, he destroyed everything, and it was his first time wanting to die from indecent exposure. The two of them were concerned about him and avoided the issue and simply joked about it. Ever since then, there has been a sudden jump in events where they would ask to sleep together with him. He's been expressing that he doesn't mind, but if they keep paying that much attention to him, it'll be distressing. Although it's just his body reacting, his age is a real pain. He was surprised when his mother seemed frustrated when she heard the story and found it boring. He furrowed his brow and asked his mother if she wanted to see his son in that state. His mother told him that she wanted to see him because it's proof that he was grown up, which is why he asked her to leave before he lost his temper. His mother burst into tears because he's so mean because she just came into his room because she had some business with him, and they received a carrier pigeon from Malchu. It caught Lug's attention, so he immediately took the letter and read it even though his mother was behind him who also did the same. Anyway, the letter came from Maha saying about the thing he was searching for. She already acquired it. His mother, who was also reading the letter, told him that Maha was writing a lot of I miss you, but he didn't pay attention to that because Maha did well to acquire the sacred treasure that he was looking for. Those are supernatural relics that cannot be crafted with human hands in any way and said to be brought about by otherworldly forces. He also heard rumors that one wielding a sacred treasure once ended a war in a country through sheer might. So to speak, it was a legendary item. An evil smile forms on his face because if he can use Balor's finds and intel to gather them all, he was sure he could further advance his magic and weapons because they are ideal items to use on finding the hero. However, she was confused and wondered what Maha shall demand of him. He assumes that she will pester him because of those I miss you in the letter that his mother already read. Later on, he went to his father's office, but on his way, he noticed a smell of blood. They've already cleaned off, but he saw blood stains. There aren't any traces of a fight, so it seems a seriously injured guest came by. But he has a feeling that it's going to be a problem. He reaches his father's office and immediately asks to discuss his final exam soon. His father, who's looking at the window, ignore his words instead, telling him that not long ago, he received a particular request. And that request was asking for the assassination of Count Dimmer in the neighboring state of Swojul and his daughter, Lady Daya the Corn. He was frozen because the news is like a bombshell for him. Luke was worried because Daya was his childhood friend who serves as his magic teacher. She was important to him, yet his father asked him to kill her. He furrowed his brow and demanded his father for an explanation why he needed to kill Daya. According to his father, there was a rebellion in the neighboring state of Swojul. The same thing happens in other countries, but ambitious nobles have been constantly bolstering their forces. Most of those nobles became arrogant after gathering enough and eventually started thinking they were better suited to rule the country. In the end, claims of incompetence and negligence were made against the royal family of Swojul, and several nobles joined forces and incited a revolt, and it seems that the nobles won surprisingly. In the kingdom of Alvarn, the Tuatha Dé exists to judge rebellious nobles. However, Swojul lacks such force, and that is the result. He knew that Daya's family aligned with the royal family. They had to forfeit the bulk of their territory and assets to nobles as compensation. After hearing those to Daya, he avoided meeting her for the time being. So he told his father they should have finished cleaning up after the war without a hitch, because he thought that the issue was already resolved. Since Lug already knew that much, his father was going to tell him the rest. Assets and territory, nobles already acquired it. They also wanted their beautiful daughter who possessed powerful magic. That's because any noble would want a superior sorcerer as their heir. It seems that Count Vicorn was planning to concede to their demands to avoid unnecessary bloodshed, and that was including Daya. However, their retainers wouldn't allow it, so they rose up against them and killed envoys sent to pick up Lady Daya. As of the moment, they have Count Vicorn and Lady Daya confined as they are barricades inside the castle. So to suppress them quickly, they ordered to display the Count and Daya's head on stakes to lower the populace's morale. That request came from Count himself. His messenger came to him to tell just now. Lug was speechless, so his father told him that he's free to refuse the request. That's because the request is a typical of what Tuatha to handle, and it would be a personal matter to him. It certainly won't bring peace to the kingdom of Alvarn. Plus, Lady Daya is an important friend of him, and the Tuatha decreed is irrelevant. He would only reduce himself to the level of an ordinary assassin. Cyan remembers his conversation with Bainech, that the latter wanted to stop Ilg being an aristocrat assassin and devote himself as a merchant instead. He even offered Cyan 2 years' worth of his territory's tax yields. because for him, Ilg's talent would be too much of a waste to leave dormant. So that moment, he told Lug that he has other paths that he can take besides being an assassin. But he was stunned when Lug didn't respond and was about to leave. On the other hand, before the latter left, he told his father that even if they were to go against their creed, it is the path he chose as an assassin. He also added that his father's reason for the request is because it would take him 3 days to reach the territory of Vikhorn, while he could rush there in just a few hours. His father laughed when he found how brazen he was. Then his father asked him how he was going to do it if he was really going to assassinate Daya. He smiled at his father, claiming that he was an assassin, and it had certainly become a cornerstone for him. However, he wants to make judgment of his own will. He was going to kill Daya, but he won't actually kill her because he has a plan, so he asks his father to leave everything to him. Then he left his father speechless and had no idea on how he would do it. He went to the balcony along with his wife. He seems worried because for the first time in his life, he disobeyed the Tuatha decreed. To think that his son would do the same thing. He thought he raised him to be different from him, but it seems he adopted his peculiarities. There's nothing he could do but to support his son to do his best. Anyway, Lug rushed rapidly to find Daya. But on his way, he saw Talt, who seemed to be waiting for him. She bowed her head and said that she had not met Lady Daya even once yet. She was aware that she is incredibly important for Lug. The latter agreed with her and wanted her to come with him, but she won't be able to catch up with him since he has to go full force. Talt was aware of it. According to her, if he ran there with full force at that distance, it would exhaust him. Even if he has hyper-regeneration, his recovery will not be able to keep up his mana and stamina. That means he will not be able to rescue Lady Daya. So she suggests using her wind magic to reduce the air resistance and ferry Lug as far as possible. So she immediately used it, so the latter followed her. On the other hand, on the Swoigel, territory of Vikhorn, a combustion was happening while the guards seemed uproarious because of the scene. They didn't know what to do because their third army, the volunteer army's defense, was too intense. The west gate remains impenetrable. Some of the guards comment that they are surprisingly stubborn. A huge man stood up and released a killing intent, claiming that he was going to quickly finish them off. When Lug reached the territory of Vikhorn, he saw how disastrous it was. It's been 6 hours since he heard the story. As he ran there, the nobles' armies had already pushed as far as the gates to count Vikhorn. Vikhorn's soldiers are holding out well, but it looks like they are about to be defeated. He counts Vikhorn's soldiers, including the conscripted farmers. They don't even amount to 200. While the nobles have an overwhelming large force of easily more than 1,500 soldiers, their equipment is completely different too, and the difference in their strength is obvious too. In order to sneak into Daya's castle without anyone noticing, he has to think of some of the enemy's might. Considering that he run 320 kilometers, but Talt helped him to save quite a bit of mana and stamina. He helped him as far as she could until she fell on the ground because of exhaustion. He left Talt and promised that he would definitely return the favor. Anyway, he starts to make his move and uses his Tuatha Desires where it visualizes a target's mana. Then he released his gunfire and charged it with his magic. Then he started to shoot each and every enemy. In that world's battlefield, one sorcerer possesses enough power to rival 100 soldiers. On his way, he noticed something about the soldiers. Because of their reaction speeds, it appears that they know about guns, and it looks like Daya introduced the gunfire to them, although he taught her to keep the nobles in check. Soldiers were terrified when they observed Vikhorn's soldiers firing them again with ironstone magic, so they yelled to evacuate the sorcerer into the building. He forms an evil smile because it's convenient for him. Those guys are likely being conveyed the fear of their sorcerer being in his crosshairs. If that's the case, their next move is easy to predict for him. He wanted to avoid using his trump card as much as possible, but since he already saw sorcerers who were hiding in the back to observe the battlefield, he immediately pulled out his bow and arrow and targeted them. As soon as the arrow landed on them, it related something that created an explosive. It was the foul stone that he once used to blow the Tuatha Dé estate. He recreated the stone that Daya gave him and successfully mass-produced it. Over the last few years up until that moment, all of the mana he'd waste releasing was instead stored in the foul stone. However, the nobles' army was terrified for getting bims with something unknown to them. They didn't even know where the explosive came from and were focusing on their commander. Lug can see how lethal the foul stone was because of the damage that it can create. He quickly jumps after to change places. He notices that the battlefield is turning chaotic and the enemy's firepower is dwindling. That should be a perfect time to infiltrate the castle, so he immediately jumps from one building to another until he reaches the castle. He observed that the Vikhorn's soldiers were rushing to strike those traitors after he bombed them with foul stone. After that, he went inside of the castle. Daya's castle was second nature for him because he already knew of a secret route to her room. Who would have known that after monthly sneak out to her room could be useful? On his way up, he bumped into a soldier, but he sensed something was coming, so he used the body of the soldier as a shield. Other soldiers were furious, so they rushed towards Lug to kill him. Before the latter run, he throws them a foul stone, then quickly runs away. But he was not happy with the result because he killed a lot of soldiers up until that moment. Those soldiers were not villains. They were forced on the battlefield on orders. That thought brings pains in his chest because of the emotion that he never felt when he was still alive. In his previous life, his assassination success rate was 100%. He was a top-class assassin who would never kill any innocents, but he was an assassin who was merely a pawn that excited orders. But now he was killing people in an order just to save Daya. He wants to avoid casualties as much as possible, but if he spends time deciding a course of action in that situation, he won't be able to save Daya. He doesn't feel any regret because he'll repent once he saved Daya. On the other hand, a Vikhorn was looking out the window and noticed that it appears the circumstances have changed a bit outside the castle. A lady burst into tears and told Daya not to force herself and rest because she does not have enough mana left. Dai agrees with her, but is persistent on helping the other because everyone is still fighting for her. She looks at the window wondering if she only has a ton of mana just like Lug. Little did she know, Lug was already climbing down on her window and was about to save her. Thank you for watching, guys. I hope you love this manga. Have a good day.